NFTV, we're never gonna stop.
Tasha, happy Friday. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm very excited to speak with you.
Well, thank you for welcoming me. I am super stoked to be here. So let's do it.
Let's do it. So, my name is Cameron. I'm head of community at Rad TV, and we do a pretty regularly scheduled show, which we call NFTV, where we highlight artists, builders in the space, businesses. And today we have linked with Queen Tasha Caufield, who is the creator of Be Water, My Friend, the story of Bruce Lee. And when I came across that online, I was absolutely blown away. It was an amazing piece, reached out to her, got that on Rad. It is currently one of the most streamed pieces on Rad, and
Whoop,
we
whoop.
love it. And today we're very excited to talk to you about your creative journey, how you've gotten to where you are, especially key focus on the AI piece of this. But I know you're an author, a producer, a director. You are a very prolific creator, and we're excited to hear all about it. So, with that little bit of background, I would love to hear where you are in your current life. Where in the world are you? If you're comfortable sharing any of that, don't share anything that you're not comfortable with, of course. But would love to get a little background on you, where you're from, and where your creative process started. When did you start first being a creator?
Well, technically, I started when I was a kid playing piano. And so the first thing I created was a song. I composed a song. But my best friend growing up, she could play everything, like every instrument. She could play it by ear. So I knew that wasn't for me. Like, you can be a great musician reading music, but I just wanted that um, type of I don't know, experience with whatever craft if I were to have I was
Like the
thinking like
gift,
that.
like the pure gift.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. At the time you're just like, she's just better. So like that's, what am I doing? But but yeah, so I just go on with my life, and it was a really crappy childhood, in and out of the streets, very abusive home, all that kind of
And
stuff.
you've
And I was
always
in a
been West Coast?
yeah, I was born in the city of Los Angeles, and
Amen.
in the jungles, which is a bad part. Family came from Belize, so there's like a community over there. And my mom converted from Catholicism to Seventh Day Adventist, and I was in a private school that had a lot of diversity. Not just my neighborhood was diverse, but also as far as like who I hung out with, at least. But just there was my teacher was Indonesian, and my best friend was Filipino, and my friends were Nicaragua and El Salvador and all that. So I grew up kind of like in this international thing, which is one of the reasons why I think I feel comfortable. Having kind of a global approach to my films, that and traveling the world later in life.
Amazing. So you got Palm Beach on here. Are you currently Palm Beach or
I
just spent a
am
stint in
I
there?
am a Palm Beacher.
Dang, you
Yes,
moved to Florida for the snow, huh?
I am in love with Florida. I fell in love with it. And, I mean, yesterday it was 85 and I'm a beach
Oh,
girl.
yeah.
And, LA gets pretty cold. I like the South Bay when I'm there, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, and stuff like that. But it's cold.
It's
It's
cold. The
cold.
water's
Yeah.
icy cold. You can't even get in the
Yeah.
water, you know?
No, no. I don't wear jackets out here or anything. The only time I ever have a sweater is if I'm going to the movie theater and you take it because it's cold in there.
Cool.
But
I lived in Orlando for a while. Only thing I don't like about
ah,
I lived in LA for 14 years, Orlando for 3.5 years, and the thing I didn't like about Florida was I just sweated so much. It was just so sticky and wet all the time, especially down where you're at.
yeah, you get used to the humidity,
Yeah.
like you do. And one thing I like about it is like 8 months out of the year, like right now it's considered season, but the weather is absolutely perfect.
Hmm.
Just like the humidity's down, all of that is great. And then the 3 months during the summer where it's like really bad and the humidity is high are the best times to travel everywhere else in the world. Like
Right.
everywhere
Right.
else becomes super fun, whether it's New York or Europe or wherever. Like, so it's, you get the best of both worlds. It's not like when it's fun to go out where you live, it's also fun to go out everywhere. It's like you can, like, the winters are amazing here, and then
Right.
it's spring and autumn, and then when the summer hits, you're like, okay, like you can, like, it's like the best of
Hmm.
everything.
Okay, so you're young. You've thrown in the towel on piano immediately because because superstar is out here shining. And you're like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So
When in doubt,
what was your next venture in? It seemed like you have a very diverse group of people that you're around and community. Your mom's in a pretty niche religion that she's taken up. So I'm very interested to hear where this goes. So
well,
where did you first go? Yeah.
I guess technically chimes was next. I don't know if anybody knows the music, like the musical instrument chime,
Yeah.
but I was in like the school choir. I don't know what you would call it, band
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
chimes. And so that was that. But outside of that, like, so that's like the nerdy kind of wholesome part of my childhood, reading R.L. Stein books and doing that, playing piano, going to church and all that kind of stuff. And then there's like the darker side, which is just, the stuff that ended up sending me into juvenile institutions and things like that, and just in and out of the system, and having all these like traumatic events that was, stuff that I guess is really cool if you're going to be an artist.
If you're gonna be a writer, sure. Yeah, we gotta
Yeah,
have it,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, it's like you're
uh,
going to need material, girl. So here you go.
I don't want to pressure you into sharing anything you're uncomfortable with, but I would love to know. I also had a pretty tough childhood, and I resonate with that. And I feel the way you're kind of expressing that you're comfortable talking about this, and you kind of seem like an open book. So where if you don't mind me sharing, and if you do, feel free to push back. Don't No pressure at all. But where did that start in your childhood? How old were you? And was that a direct out? Was creativity a direct outlet for you to start getting some of this energy out?
Well, I want to hear about your bad childhood now. I'm going
Nah,
to talk to you
no,
until you
not me.
cry.
Nah. It's
Yeah,
just,
because people are
just
going to be like, I didn't see that
typical,
coming.
typical America. Drugs, alcohol, and
Mm,
kids not having parents. But I mean, it's fine. I think we grew up. I think we
it's
grew up the
okay.
same era. Latchkey kids. We were kind of raised
Yeah,
more by the
for sure.
community than we were by our parents often. And at the
Mhm.
time in the 90s, that was normal. It was doors unlocked, kids running in and out of everybody's house, and that's the way life was. And some kids had it harder than others. I had it pretty bad, but I had several friends that had it far worse than me that thought my house was heaven. So
Yeah.
we hung out at my house, and that led to us being creative as well, getting into hip hop music and producing and finding outlets and experimenting with drugs and everything else that led to being a creative. So I feel like that's kind of where you are. Is this where are you at this time? You were
Well,
in Cali until you're a young
yeah,
adult.
yeah. I'm in Los Angeles still. I'm in the jungles, and I say that it's a really bad neighborhood. It's probably the
What's the
worst in
jungles?
Los.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What
It's
is
like a
that?
little area, sub area in the Baldwin Hills district. So like you kind of go in and you'll know it when you're there. I mean, now it's changed a little bit,
Isn't Baldwin Hills really
but
nice? Is that not no?
well, now I think it's changed. And you're thinking about oh god, what's that area around it which they call the Black Beverly Hills? It's like oh
Yeah,
god, I can't
exact,
remember.
exact. I wasn't gonna say that,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that
yeah.
ain't it. That ain't it.
Okay,
There's this
okay,
area where you go, and it was featured in Training Day, so that was like
okay,
the only
okay.
attention we got. Yeah, see the difference. Uh,
Yep,
so
yep,
yeah,
yep.
so yeah,
Ladera
so I would
Heights,
say
View Park, Windsor Hills.
yeah, Ladera Heights is what is
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
nice
Okay.
stuff and everything. Yeah, and then you go in there and it's very different. It's it starts to get dark. You got all the trees, which are one of the reasons why it's called the jungles. Outside of it being bad, and since it got no attention, so you got like Watson Compton. So people who grew up in nicer areas, like if they wanted to help bad communities, they would usually gravitate towards those type of places. So you actually have pretty decent school districts and stuff and places like that. But the jungles got no attention, so it was just dark. Like people are literally just getting shot outside your place and stuff like
Jeez.
that. So so that's where I landed. But my mom, she came here. My brothers were born. I'm the youngest. My brothers were born in Belize, and my sister and me were born here. And she came here. One of the reasons was for better education for us. Well, I don't know if it was for that, but she believed it a good education. So she did make the sacrifice. She was a nurse to send us to private school when we were younger. But she was with a lot of very abusive men, and my dad took the cake. All of them were abusive, but mine was like the most. And she finally left him when she caught my brothers planning to kill him. But she was also very abusive herself. So there was a lot of that going on in the house. And when my stepdad entered, then it got worse. And then my sister, who was more vocal, they sent her to a children's shelter. And so I learned to shut down really quick. And I'm like, okay, so I completely lost any sort of outlet of expression because I saw what happens if you say anything. So I guess you could say that's where, the writer later comes in because I needed that. When I was in a juvenile institution, I read, a teacher introduced me to Catcher in the Rye, which is a big book for me. As you can see, I did a film on it. My pseudonym is inspired by it and stuff like that. It's a play off of Holden Caulfield, and that kind of awakened my eyes to the idea that you can express certain feelings in that medium. Like I had no idea. Like I said, I'm reading R.L. Stein. I'm reading, Flowers in the Attic. I'm reading all these things that had nothing to do with anything I ever felt or could relate to. So when Holden Caulfield comes along and he's talking about feelings of alienation and all that stuff, it was massive for me. So a couple weeks later, this organization comes into one of the institutions I'm in, and it's for writing. It was called Write Now at the time. Now it's called Create Now because it incorporates all types of art forms. So any of you who think about maybe helping kids or whatever with this art, with AI film, whatever, like that's a great place to go. Um, they came in and they were writers and they were Hollywood writers, and they were like, we're doing a sitcom workshop. And at that time I had absolutely no trust in adults or whatever. So like I wanted nothing to do with them, but I found myself raising my hand, which was weird. And the lady who created the organization, Jill Gurr, is the one who all my films are dedicated to. And she was like a mother figure before she passed away 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, in 2022 or whatever. And then Lisa Rosenthal, who ran the writers workshop, she was a producer on Fresh Prince and Married with Children, and writer and all that kind of stuff, and all those shows. She asked me one day if she can work with me one on one afterwards, and from then on, like I just started writing with her, like everything, and reading a lot too, short stories and all that kind of stuff. But writing that, scripts, sitcoms, features, just everything, poems, every type of writing I was exploring. And that was kind of my segue into this world. But and so I was in and out still, and I'm in these places, and so I'm getting more material because I'm seeing what's happening inside with all these other kids. Like my situation was really bad, inside the home and living out on the streets at times. And very much like that movie Kids. And then I'm in there and seeing what's going on in those type of places, and the drugs that the kids are being put on and all that kind of stuff, and being in the hole, and just all these like traumatic things. And the my mentor, she told me, that if she well I I've missed the part about how I was really depressed, obviously, and they were trying to put me on drugs,
How old are you here?
Prozac. I am 14 at this particular moment where
Mhm.
my mentor is in my life, and the drug stuff. But I first got locked up at 12, and then like the whole solitary confinement situation that I talk about, the whole, and being in that and listening to boys lose their mind and go crazy, which is, I do a video about it on YouTube, about my experiences in juvenile justice system. That was at 13. And then so now I'm 14 and I'm in this place, and that's when the organization comes in. And they're I one of the things that kind of saved me at that time was my mom wouldn't let them put me on drugs because of her religion. Not that she didn't think I needed them, but just because it was against her religion. And they wanted to put me on it because they drug everybody, and they were saying I was depressed, which I absolutely was because my life was really bad. And my mentor, she told me if I were in your situation, I'd be depressed too. And that was a big moment for me in my
Amen.
formative years,
Sure.
because yeah, because no one had
Supposed
ever
to be.
validated.
Yeah, yeah, amen. Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah, yeah, none of my feelings were ever validated or anything like that. So So things are starting to happen with the writing. I'm starting to have a little bit of an outlet. My feelings were just validated by this person. And so I'm starting to kind of see things different. And I had a therapist. I had a lot of therapists as a kid because you're in these places.
Yep.
And so,
They make
one
you
thing,
talk to them. Yeah, I was having to go to elementary school. I had to get taken out of class yeah, I know, I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of them, and they're all bad. And they're not very good. Not that they're
You
not
mean
trying.
bad at like, yeah, they're like not they're not gifted. They didn't
Yeah,
they
exactly. Exactly.
they should have
It's
went
like
somewhere else maybe.
yes, it's like every other field, like there's the majority of people doing their job are not very good at it. And
Right,
then you have
right.
some people who are really great at it.
Yeah.
And that's no exception with therapy or anything like that. And so, most of them were so I'm not getting really anywhere with that stuff. And then I had my last therapist, my final one was a guy, and all he did was just give me my file, which was very thick at this point because I'm in and out of institutions maybe 7, 9 times by now, and he just gave it to me, and I just started reading what everybody was saying about me, and I realized like nobody got me, like just so yeah, nobody got me. So I just realized like you're gonna have to lie. If you if you want a future at all, if you want to get out of here, like you are gonna have to learn the art of just being
Masking.
fake and
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
masking
Yeah.
if you're gonna get out of here, because nobody gets out of here really. They all graduate to the adult prison system and stuff like that.
Sure.
So it's just like so I had to kind of find a way to just fake it until find it. And so I've started focusing on my writing and things like that. And more mentors are coming into my life through Lisa, Jim Bernstein, who wrote for Family Guy and all that. And they're taking me to all their places. And I just started to have this this culture. I say I was raised by a pack of Jews in that sense. And I mean it in the most loving sense. Like I was saved by them because they're all these Jewish writers and they just like rallied around me and just, you know, helped me and supported me all through those years, and I was able to finally get out of the juvenile justice system around 15, 16, probably 16. um and I was so focused on that, like they put me in when I went to high school, like I got bullied out of the ghetto high schools because I was punk rock. so so I had to catch the bus an hour and a half to University High School, which is like in West LA.
An
And,
hour and a half.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Both ways, so 3 hours a day?
yeah, I didn't think anything of it. Like, but I learned later, like, people are like, that's kind of a big deal.
That's a
But I'm
huge
like,
deal.
yeah, but I think that helped me also be able to get to the school I ended up going to for college. Just the quality of this school being better. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I'm focusing on that, and they're putting me in honors and AP courses, and I asked them to take me out of them because I had no interest. I was weaning off of smoking marijuana at that time. It was a struggle. It was
So
a
you're
struggle.
16, 17 here?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I started smoking at 12, and 12 to about 15, 16. Same time I was off. And I smoked a lot. Like when I wasn't locked up. When I wasn't locked up, like everywhere I went, it was stoners.
Mhm.
So, that's probably why I didn't think anything about catching the bus in an
Right,
hour and a
right.
half.
Just a 3 hour cruise, no problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
just
like I'm just
chilling.
listening to Sublime. And what's the deal?
Funny.
But yeah, so so I'm asking them to take me off that. They take me out of those classes, so I get to kind of focus on still writing, and I'm skipping school and going to the beach and if to work on scripts or going to the coffee shop to work on scripts and stuff like that. My grades are still doing okay because the little private school I had in elementary and a little bit of middle school was is so much better than the public school system. So I was able to kind of skate by through a lot of high school once I entered the public school system, based off of all the stuff I learned then. And yeah, so I'm just focused on that at that point, and I'm writing in my scripts camera angles and things like that, and you're not supposed to do that. And my writers let me know you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, so that's when I realized I wanted to be a director. So, I applied to film schools for director of production, and that's how I got into USC Film School. And I got into the production track, which takes 50 students a year. They have
Amazing.
critical studies, and they have screenwriting. And I went for production, and Warner Brothers read some stuff I wrote, and they decided to pay for college. So I became a Warner
Let's
Brothers fellow.
go, Tasha. Let's
I know,
go. This is
right?
an amazing story. This is
I know,
great.
right?
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, so so that led to all of that. And I do film school, and I do my internships, and I'm also you know try exploring other places, stuff at Sony and stuff at and some independent places, and just I don't know how many studios. I just was exploring everything at the same time, because you could do that when you go to USC. And so I finally get out. I decide to go to Paramount instead of work for Warner Brothers. And I just, I just realized corporate Hollywood wasn't for me. Like, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like, the environment I wanted to be around. And number one, I knew I wasn't going to become the type of writer, the type of filmmaker I wanted to be. I was like, Cool Hand Luke was my favorite film, and A River Runs Through It. Like, I was inspired by all of these movies that had like this great American novel. Like, it's a certain type. It's where it's just like there's so much life into it. And I didn't want to create from a place of just like, oh, all I can really talk about is a bad childhood and Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
didn't want like that to be my life. So that's not what I knew at the time when I was doing it. I was, because you're 21 or whatever. I graduated when I was 21, pretty young. And um and so i but I was just frustrated and bummed out, because I didn't, being in just being in Hollywood, and a lot of people aren't really that happy. They're not working on, people want to work on Godfathers and stuff like that, and there aren't a lot of those movies or great sitcoms being made. So you're not really working on a lot of really great stuff, so it's not like the happiest
Yeah, most
people,
people are
unless you
working on
just
stuff they hate. I mean, very few people are
yeah.
working, not maybe not hate, but like they're happy to have a job
Yeah.
in the field that they're in, but they're also doing something to pay the bills often.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, unless you're like a pure technician, like a construction person or something who, like a grip gaffer, you just like that's your identity's not wrapped up in any of that stuff. Like, it can be a pretty depressing
Right. It's a
uh
job, not your
yeah,
life. Being an artist and then you're not being fulfilled is like a real drain. Depression. Sure, sure.
yeah. Yeah, so once again, I'm like in another institution that I'm not that happy with. So, but at this point, all these people invested in me. They had, they, so, like the expectations are high. You don't go through all of that. And you don't, you're at USC, everybody's, like the expectations are high. So what do you do? So I ran away, but I left with the excuse of law school, because nobody tells you you're throwing your life away if you say I'm going to law school. So, I left to the Midwest. Like, I really wanted to just live a life. Like, when I had the couple times I traveled, I had no idea what people were doing outside of LA. I was like, what are these people doing? Like, and people who moved to LA would tell me, like, no, LA is different.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
place,
LA's the other country. Everywhere else is normal. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I didn't have a concept of that. Like, I just, so I had to go out and live a life. Like, I really did. And but at the same time, when I went out to live that life, like, I kind of had to hypnotize myself to do it. So I stopped being a writer. I stopped being an artist, and I just started living. I didn't know that I actually needed to write, like, as in a way to function and stay sane, because I started at 14. I just thought it was something I did. I didn't realize, like, no,
Hmm.
like, you need this like oxygen.
Right.
So that didn't work out well for me.
Hey, as you're telling this story, I hear you, and I'm sorry to project. I don't want you to take any offense to this, but like I feel like your story is like the Fresh Princess so far. Of
Oh my God.
like I'm here, like you're like from like you're from it's kind of a little bit opposite, but it's the same kind of vibe, and like everything you went through to then go to USC, like it's not a small feat to go to USC Film School for anyone, anywhere, ever, in any upbringing. I mean, I know people that have went there. I went
Yeah.
to Full Sail. USC's no joke. So like to get in there and then to get through, like that right there is enough success anyway, and then you're like, I'm going to law school. By that point, everybody believes you. No, nobody's worried at that point. They're just like, yeah, of course. Yeah. Champ is here. What's next, girl? What's next? All right, keep going. So you're saying no to that, and you're seeing more walls around you as a creator. And where's the next place you turn?
So now I'm in the Midwest and I'm being a normal person now. Oh, I chased
What's the
normalcy.
Midwest?
Chicago.
Oh, okay. All right. A
Uh,
downgrade. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let her fool you. She's not in Ohio. She's in the the
no,
the
I
big,
wasn't
huge
as
city in the Midwest. It's still small compared to
well.
LA.
Technically, I started out in the suburb of Midwest because I went to Northern Illinois. I got into
Okay.
better law schools, but my boyfriend at the time was a Northern Illinois grad,
Hmm.
and he had like self-esteem issues because his older brother was a Harvard guy and a Rice guy, and I was like, "You're great too." So to like prove it, I went to his. I
Awesome.
went to where he went for law school, and that's in DeKalb, and that's corn, like DeKalb, Illinois, which is corn country
Hmm.
and things like that. And and I broke up with him. Well, we broke up once we got there, but yeah, like I dated a guy who
As we
was
do.
yeah, as we do, because I couldn't be with the same person for the rest of my life. That was, it's tragic, but I wasn't built that way to like only have because this is my first like real boy, like to be with only one person for my whole life, and like this one guy, he ate his food like the way he held his fork was like he like gripped it like he was But anyway, that was the cow. so, so
Okay,
I
so you
did,
real Midwest now. They're fisting their
yeah,
forks. They got a
yeah.
fist of the fork.
Yeah, I
They're all right.
started
All right.
out, in the
They're
suburbs, and
silly.
then I would commute to DeKalb an hour, and then I finally moved to Chicago because I dropped out of law school because I didn't really want to be a lawyer, and you can't really fake, you
No,
can't
no, it's
really
like got to be
fake
your life.
laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your whole life. It's your whole life, and I'm like, this is really interrupting my partying and drinking and stuff like that. This is getting in the way. So I was like, okay, like I made it out of Hollywood. They're not really bothering me anymore. And now, it's time to live. So now it's just life now in the Midwest. But like I said, since I stopped writing, the clock was ticking as far as like me having to pay the repercussions of not writing. Like that was going to catch up with me. And it did. And I got really depressed because the relationship that I was in started to fall apart because I wasn't really myself. Like I was chasing normalcy, like that. I was in a normal place finally, and with a normal guy, living a normal life. And now I get to be what I never got to be. Like I had all these, weird challenging situations growing up, and now I'm just like it's peaceful, but that was never really the ultimate reason of why I was out there. And so I'm starting to slowly wake back up to myself, which was tough for the relationship because that wasn't what
Yeah,
he
it's not who he fell in
uh
love with.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, right, sure.
yeah, so
You're
yeah, like
transforming. He's like, what's going on?
right. They say if you don't show up as who you are in a relationship, once you start to change, the other person's
Yeah.
gonna leave because that's not who they got
Yep.
with.
Yep.
So I was like, so that was depressing. But, you know, so the only thing I could think about at that time, I was a big fan of stand up comedy, but I didn't think a lot of women comics were that funny. And I was also, because they've gotten a lot funnier in the last 5 years or so. But at that time, I say it like it was like the 60s or something. But just I just didn't feel like being that person when I go to a comedy club and they announce who the next comic is and it's a woman's name. You're kind of like, oh. So I didn't want to ruin the party. But I saw what I checked out Roseanne and I was blown away by how funny she was. And then Phyllis Diller, who's in the Guinness Book of Records for most laughs per minute. Like I started to find some really funny people, and then the only thing holding me back was fear. And that for me, like, fear is like my biggest motivator. If I'm afraid to do
Let's
something, then
go.
I'm just like, yeah, then it's like, okay, we got to do it now. And so that was my kind of way back into writing, was through stand up in Chicago. And then so when the relationship fell apart, then I went back to LA, you go back home always to lick your wounds. Not like my physical home, but like just the city. And and they were fast tracking me and just kind of like wanting me to do the whole Hollywood thing, and I fell in love with the craft of it. And once again, it's the Hollywood institution again. It's and it's being surrounded by a lot of artists who are obsessed with it and who are thinking and moving as if what they're doing has no value in it unless it's recognized in this Hollywood way. And that was a challenging environment for me to be in, um, because I don't I don't feel that way, and I don't want to. I just didn't want to feel that way, and just being around
Yeah,
artists
all
day
the
in day out.
expectations on what's supposed to happen as opposed to the creative
Y-
process. I feel, yeah,
Yeah,
amen. Yes.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, so once again, I'm like, okay, I love doing the, I like writing, I like all this kind of stuff, but I'm tired of this Hollywood thing again. Like I'm just like just this made up stuff around art. So, since I had fell in love with Florida when I lived in Chicago, we had a winter getaway here. I was like, Florida was calling my name again. And so I went, back to Florida, and I kind of do the bicoastal thing, but that kind of opened me up to be able to start writing other things. And so now I'm starting to write novels and stuff like that, but I'm still writing in kind of a screenplay form. I say I write books for people who don't like to read, which is a terrible business plan because because they're not going to read it.
Hey,
They
well,
don't like
Spotify
books.
just opened up the AI. They're allowed AI to read books now, so you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. So, but people who like to read books, they ain't got nothing else to do. And so they're like, yeah, so they want a lot of details. They want to know what, the room to be described as, there was this painting on the wall and the carpet was like this and that. And when I was a kid, I would just always skip that stuff because, oh, yeah, 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 and just try to get to the meat of it. And screenplay writing fit me well because everything you write in a script has to move the story forward. So, I just like the progressive motion and stuff like that. And when I wrote books, I would screw around a little bit and, you could linger a little bit on some other stuff that just has no point really to advancing the story. So I do that a little bit, but for the most part, I like to keep the momentum going in a certain direction. So I'm technically writing screenplays in book form and just kind of being a creative independently. And then this thing comes along and disrupts my
Here
life
we
called
go.
AI
Here we
film.
go. I knew we were
Here we
coming.
go.
All right, let's
Here
go.
we go.
So now it comes along. You've got all this years of writing. You've been
Mhm.
wanting to bring stories to life. You've been writing screenplays, and now all of a sudden the world is your oyster. You can do it all on your
Mhm.
own, and you don't have to wait on
Mhm.
anybody. You don't have to wait on any traditional Hollywood feedback loops or response
Mhm.
times. You don't have to worry about any bullshit Hollywood business, and
Right.
you're off
This
to
guy.
the races. So, what was your first moment? Where did you see this, and what was your initial feeling? Did you know right away this is it for me? I'm all in, and anywhere you want to start.
Yeah, well, the first noise that started to get made with telling stories in a way that started to have a little bit more of a cinematic feel as far as live action goes was the metaverse. So that kind of got my attention for a little bit, but it was still really far behind in the sense that bodies weren't complete and Mark Zuckerberg's butt was out, and it was like, oh, I don't need people laughing when I'm trying to tell a story. So so you keep your eye on it. You don't, I mean, for me, like, it's not like I'm like looking at it like, ooh, I hope, to be able to do this. You just, hey, you start noticing what's going on with this new technology is starting to come out. And then, and then you started to see it with the AI film that we, have come to see today. I started to see things. I don't even remember how it, came across my desk, so to speak. But I saw something, and then I think it was Butcher's Brain. I think he did a trailer that I was just like, oh wow, that's okay, okay, like yeah, you could tell stories with this. And then that's when I was like, okay, let's do it. And so my first thing I did was, you start learning it. You do the YouTube tutorials and videos and stuff like that, and get an idea of what the process is. Going from image to video and stuff like that. And I took my one of my books, a serial killer, and that was the first and I did like a book trailer for that. Sci-fi is a great place to start because the visuals do all the heavy lifting, or they do a lot of the heavy lifting. So, I think that you know is a lot easier, and you see a lot more sci-fi examples, so it's a little easier to see before you start going heavier and heavier and heavier into storytelling, like deeper storytelling that's giving people a real story they can sink their teeth into.
What was the first tool that you put your hands on and were like, I got to use this? And what was your initial thought after you used the first feedback you got, the first generations, the first things you saw? Were you like, okay, or I'm going to use these, I have to formulate a plan? What was your thought when you saw that?
God, the first tools are like things you don't even use anymore, like Kyber, I
Right,
think
right, right.
maybe.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was like something like that, and um, yeah, I did like a version of me for like a podcast I was talking on that was so I didn't have to be on screen anymore. So I think it was just like something like that. Um, as far as the first tool that really got me excited, mm, I don't know. I mean, I'm a mid journey girl, so it was probably somewhere around that, probably somewhere around mid journey.
All right. So this Bruce Lee piece is incredible. What sparked you wanting to tell a story of Bruce Lee? And did you have any connection to like Bruce Lee prior to this?
I don't have a connection that I know of. I mean, it's a small town, and even if you look at the film and Sterling Silliphant went to USC and stuff like that, so I'm sure that there's some stuff that I know. I'm sure one of my mentors or
Small
something
world.
had some.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But as far as like my personal life, I had no connection to him. How I got into it is actually all documented like on my timeline because I did this film called Broadcast Yourself, and people kept writing in the comments like there were like at least three or something that kept saying like masterpiece. This is that piece of like they just kept using the word masterpiece and saying the word master. And I think someone did like had a Bruce Lee gif connected, and I just started. Oh, and somebody wrote yeah, that wow, I can't remember, but yeah, it had something had to do with Bruce Lee, and I just started to connect the two. And I was like, so I wrote like, I think I might study a real master next because I know where I'm going, and I love studying great people and people who are doing interesting things and have done interesting things. So I know I wanted to spend time with someone like that for my next piece, especially with coming off of one that was so intense. So I was like, okay, let me kind of do one that's going to help me rebalance and just kind of refocus. And so I still didn't have clearance though. I posted because I hadn't shared really my process that much before. And with Broadcast Yourself, I did a podcast going through my process, and it was like 2 hours long. And I uh, got bored editing it like 10 minutes in. So I was like, well, they're not going to get this. And so with this one, I'm like, well, since they know what I'm working on now, and I'm not going to want to deal with it once I'm done with it, let me take people along on the journey of creating this Bruce Lee film. So, I get all the books I need. And with Bruce Lee, with any of them, if with any of this, of the research you're doing with any of these films, which is a lot. Like I'm reading a lot of books. I'm reading everything that's out there. I'm watching every document. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. A lot of things are out of print, so you're spending 100, or more just for a book on that. You're just videos that it looks like that people who ran with them made. Like it looks like they just asked somebody on Venice Beach, hey, could you film me while I talk about my experience with Bruce Lee? Like all these things, the whole ecosystem of 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 Bruce Lee, to where it's like I know what everything's gonna say before it's said, everything he wrote, all that. I'm still getting to know it, and and waiting to see if I'm gonna get clearance to tell this man's story, because you just can't do it without that, in my opinion. And so I finally get the clearance, and then it's like, okay, it's go time. And yeah, then it's time to write.
Amazing. I love that you just picked Bruce Lee and that you felt a resonance and you're like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to study a master. It seems that it had a higher purpose than that. When you look at the work, I mean, how long, if you don't mind sharing, how long did it take you to create this 20-minute piece?
Yeah, well, real quick, yeah, definitely was an experience of being like water because I have a whole list of films that I want to make. So it was technically kind of disruptive in a sense. Like, hey, I got a gazillion ideas. So it was definitely like a hey, there's something telling you to go with this flow right here.
Mhm.
But it took me 3 months, pretty much exactly, to do it. A month to research and write. And when I research, it's usually around 12-hour days. Almost every part of it is around 12-hour days. I try to cut back to about 9 hours. But so when I say research, and I say 3 months, that's full time. So if you don't have full time, then you can adjust the recipe. But yeah, so it's research and writing, pre-production, all that kind of stuff, production, doing the voices, casting, creating the images, doing the image to video, stuff like that, and then post-production, editing, and all that kind of stuff is another month. So I about a month for each phase of production.
Amazing. So, you have traditional Hollywood background. Do you have experience in Hollywood with the production side, on like the filming side? Did you actually get to do, you were writing in, you said camera angles and shots that you wanted. Did you have any experience with that, or was this your first opportunity to really do some hands-on direction?
Yeah, I didn't direct in Hollywood. I directed student films and stuff like that. But
Well, you were just writing it. You were like pre-directing, you're like directing the because you're writing it in. So you kind of were thinking that way, even though it wasn't leading to
yeah, I
the
was
act.
thinking that
Yeah.
way. And when you go to film school, you make films, and USC films are, they're that's a whole other world in and of itself because everybody goes off and win Academy Awards and Emmys and stuff like that every year. So like those are kind of considered a whole ecosystem in themselves and a big deal. But since when I got to Hollywood and and I'm working on other people's projects, I didn't even get to that point to where, I mean, that would probably take 10, 15 years before you're directing your own thing. I figured out really quick, like, oh, this environment ain't for me. But yeah, so
So as you're starting down the path of production, you just wanted to get a feel of who Bruce Lee was, what his story was, and are you crafting the actual story along the way, or is the first 30 days, as you mentioned, is that strictly research? Are you taking deep notes? Are you organizing? How does that first initial month look for you?
yeah, I'm taking deep notes. I write everything on the yellow pad, and I'm at this phase with my next film, so like it's really fresh in my mind, my process with it. Anything that's I'm chronicling their life, but then I'm also writing down anything that I find interesting. um I'm making notes, I'm forming connections, I'm writing ideas of like, what is this like, what is this about, what's the heart of this story. Like with Bruce Lee or with anybody's life, like there's a deep message. Why is he resonating so much? And what's driving him, what does he want? Like I'm really trying to understand who this person is, and really, and just really get to know what makes them tick and why. And so, like in the beginning, a lot of it was like, it's like, why does he want this so bad? Like, what, like a lot of it, so is just like me trying to me. It's a puzzle that I'm trying to figure out, like about their personality, like what happened, what happened to you.
Mhm, mhm.
And nobody's talking about it because that's not what people talk about usually when they talk to greatness. And it was only in one area where I discovered about what was going on with his dad, and and that drug abuse and just and all that kind of stuff, where I was like, oh, okay. And him not being there because, if you just come into it, if you skim the surface of these things, you have a dad who's an actor and you're a child actor. And the dad does become, has moments where he's present, and then there's moments where he's in the other room laying down and he's out, and the kids are just they can't get to him. And they don't really talk about that part that much, but that's the part you need to see, because you're like, why is he out there fighting? why is he out there? Like, what's happening to this kid? Like, why is he so bad? Why is he getting
Yeah,
in
where's all
trouble?
this aggression coming from? Where's yeah?
Ex-
Why does he want to
Yeah,
punch people?
exactly. Exactly. And that takes a lot of research to get to that because a lot of people don't talk about it. You're not going to find Linda talking about his wife talking about it. You're not, it's just there's just a lot of stuff. Linda doesn't even talk about his the days where he's in Oakland and all that kind of stuff. Like so and that crowd. So you have to really spread yourself thin. And it's almost like you're a detective if somebody got killed and
Sure.
you got to find, like, go around to everybody who knew the person. And before somebody gives you an insight into like what
Right.
happened. So I'm trying to find out what makes them tick and what's the heart of the story. What's the overall theme.
So are you searching for that heart as you're going through this 30 days? And then once you capture that, you can sink your teeth in a little more? Or are you deciding that at the end?
Subconsciously, in a way, subconsciously, I'm searching, but I guess it's not now if I'm saying it. But but it's a somewhat thing. What I'm mostly looking for,
Well, you're
what I'm
looking for
mostly
your
doing
hook.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I'm mostly doing is learning because I love learning, and so I'm just like, and so I'm chasing what I find interesting. Like I'm going down every path I find interesting because if I find it interesting, maybe somebody else is going to find it interesting. So I'm figuring out what's interesting and doing all that kind of stuff. But underneath, I'm trying to find a connection, and that's kind of one of the things I learned in stand up. That and what's so beautiful about it, and special about the art form, is how the connections that get made in your mind, you get to see it a lot clearer. Like one of my best examples of a joke is, people say when you're in trouble, when somebody has a gun to your head, don't yell help. Well, no, damn it, I messed it up. But they say if you're in trouble, if you're in danger, don't yell help because no one will come, yell fire. And a comedian said, well, that's good unless somebody has a gun to your head. And it's just those type of connections
Right.
where it's like, so that's what I know is possible. And I'm waiting for that to happen and that's what I talk about when you need permission. Like when you need permission, like from whatever universal forces, whatever, like to tell that story. That's one of the things that has to click for you. Is just it all has to like lock in and come together. Because
Okay.
yeah, because I wanted to force it. Like I wanted to name it "Along Came a Dragon." I loved that name and stuff like that. And there's this moment I'm not going to talk about it because it sounds crazy. But Bruce was like, "Nope." That he had a message and that was his message, be water my friend. And along came a dragon. Now I'm focused on him again. It's kind of like the whole Jesus thing. Are you focused on the person or their message or what
Right.
they stood for and what they wanted to share with the world?
So when you said you were looking to get permission, you weren't seeking permission from an entity other than the universe. The entity was the universe that you were kind of listening to and looking for your way forward for the story.
It's you could say it's the universe, but it's kind of just the person, which I guess is the universe if they're a part of it. I don't know how any of that stuff works. I just know that I just know that like if you want, like, you can do things the easy way or the hard way in life. And for me, and this is the art of laziness, like and if it's gonna be meaningful, if it's gonna be deep, the easy way is going to have all of the universal forces just kind of working in your favor. Like it's going to come together like magic. And so it came to me in a dream. God, that sounds awful. but
No, it
but
doesn't.
the permission I got came in a dream. And that was kind of like, okay, and a lot of times, sometimes it'll show itself as like this is the approach to take to it, or an opening, like an opening to a film is a good way to know, like, if you got permission. Like if it's like, you know it's like, I don't want to say it like this, but it's like if you're a guy and you want to sleep with a girl, it's like her opening your legs kind of a thing. It's like, okay, like, I can, like, you got
You're
permission,
invited. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. That's a good
Yeah,
way to put it.
sure.
So yeah, the openings are the invitation.
Okay, so you're a month in, you've got your invitation, you know what story you're going to tell. What's next for you? You have a history of script writing. You mentioned character development. Are you
Mhm.
actually writing out a script with all of these characters and then working on a storyboard? What's the next step for you after you come out of your notes?
Well, if they're made up characters, I'm definitely making sure I know their backstories and all that kind of stuff. So like I asked them, and these are made up, so I got to know everything. I got to know who their parents were. I got to know who their grandparents were. I got to know, what they've done with their, like. I got to know all these stuff. So I'm
Sure.
making up all of that stuff and writing,
You got to have the
all that
map
kind of.
first.
Yeah, yeah, because it'll inform everything. It'll inform how they talk, how they walk,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
what they say, all that kind of stuff. So if it's someone like Bruce Lee, as you can see, I've gotten to know him. I've gotten to know the world around him and stuff like that. And I'm following the 3 act structure for the most part. I'm a big fan of Sid Field, who is like the guru on screenwriting. He's the only person whose autograph I went when I was younger too. So, and I got it, so that was exciting when I was like a kid. But
That's crazy.
he wrote this book called Screenplay, and that's kind of, and that breaks down the 3 act structure and just the whole storytelling format about the what a person wants, the call to adventure, the hero's journey, kind of stuff, the refusal of the call, and just what happens. I'm finding out what they want, what stands in their way, what they have to do to overcome it. What are the obstacles? And there has to be obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, and you got to, and then once you've done that, you got to go back and make sure the obstacle's bigger, make sure your villain is as bad as your villain can be, make sure your main character is leading the way, make sure they're the ones coming up with the solutions, all these kind of things that make a story great. So Screenplay is a great book for that. Save the Cat is another one to freshen up, and Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all this. If anybody's new here, we are talking with Tasha Campbell, an incredibly,
Campbell.
what did I say?
Joseph Campbell. I said Joseph Campbell, so you
No, I
said
said
Tasha
Tasha
Campbell.
Caufield. Oh, sorry. Tasha Caufield. You said Campbell. Sorry. Tasha Caufield. I have it right in front of me and I said Campbell. I'm literally reading your name and said the wrong word. Tasha Caufield with us, and she is an incredible creator, author, director. She has done all kinds of stuff. She's writing books. You can go to TashaCaufield.com. You can check out her Rad TV page at the top of our channel. Check out her X page. We tagged her in a couple posts. You can check out her YouTube. Her website is TashaCaufield.com. Go check it out. We're learning all about her most recent, well, not most recent, maybe second most recent, because I saw you just put one out recently, like maybe, 2 weeks ago or so.
High accent.
Now you've got your character development and you are ready to take the next step. So is this total? Do you know where you're going with the story? Do you have an end, or are you searching for the end? Do you have like 3 points that you're connecting here, and you know where you're going now that you've already done your research? You know the story you're telling, or are you still looking to see where the story ends and where the plots really form and strike, and where these crescendos rise?
Well, you I mean, with a person's life, you kind of, well, they die, so that happens.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you don't know if you're going to end at their death. Like with a Maya Angelou or something. It could just end with their book or whatever becoming a massive hit, and people just loving them, and that's it. You might not cover the death or anything past that, or any of their career past that, which is kind of like writing or making a film that's a memoir in a way. But when you're doing the full life, you kind of know that. But no, I didn't know if I would show his death or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, you don't know until it comes to like
I guess like
a
edit, final
natural.
edit or whatever. Yeah, even.
Yeah, it's like more. Yeah, it's kind of a natural conclusion. You're just getting the beats of the story. It's like I said, when you're focused on what this person wants, what stands in their way, what are they doing to overcome it, like, and you're doing that within this 3 act structure, is going to kind of inform the best way to end it. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Are you collecting pictures along the way? Are you doing anything in the form of the visual production up until this point? Are you capturing pictures of on what these characters look like, people in his life to use, or maybe even characters that look similar, so you're not using the same thing? Anything you can add there of what you're thinking about step two while you're on step one?
If anything, I'm doing in step two while I'm on step one is music. That's the
Wow.
thing. Like I sit, with characters. once I'm done writing everything, like casting for me with characters, that's you set aside a day for the voices and to just figure out who looks right for the role, stuff like that. But yeah, music comes in earlier and earlier when I'm writing. Like the beginning of Bruce Lee, I wrote to Franz Schubert's what the E flat, whatever, the Barry Lyndon song where he when he first sees Lady Lending and he got do 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 do
The
do 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 do
the
do
piano
do do
trio.
do. Yeah, and I'm getting that. I'm just getting the tune. I'm just getting the feel, the vibe, and I'm seeing if I have musical support um, for it. It helps me to kind of get in the zone. I needed something a little bit more militant than that for the beginning, but like that's what I'm looking for. It's just like, will I have support for this? Sometimes I don't get it when I in the writing phase, or I don't even look for it in the writing phase. But there's certain moments where I'm like, I want to tell this story, but I want to capture what tone am will I have the support? I don't know for it. So like even with 1984, I know when I start writing it, like it's just like I'm gonna like that music is gonna inform the tone. And that's kind of like the same with like Martin Scorsese. He'll have the music inserted when he's writing the script and stuff like that. It's not uncommon.
Amazing. I've not really heard too much about that of having the. I've always when I've talked to people, I always feel like the music comes so late in the production or even post production.
Yeah, I mean, when you first start, like when I first did my first couple of films, I thought about it a little later. But it's so important. It's always been connected with the cinematic experience, from the get go, from the silent era and people playing, the orchestra playing along, or pianist, whatever, playing along in the theater, and just it's always been a part of it. It's like it's what makes the movie, it adds a whole other dimension to it. So you want to collaborate with that as quickly as possible because, it's so integral.
Sure. So, at what point do you start your actual visual production? It seems that, yeah, and I love that you have such a story focus, and I think that's something that a lot of creatives are missing at the moment is starting with the written word and the idea, and then taking it into the realm of creativity of generating the visuals and what the sound for
Mhm.
those things. And it seems like that's you had to do. That's your anchor. That's who you are as a being. You literally were like forged in this to be this person.
Well, it's a part of filmmaking. Like even like whether it's Todd Phillips or Scorsese, or I was listening, and even the guy who did City of God, I was listening to them talk, and they're like, you only shoot stuff to have something to edit. Like you're grabbing the stuff because editing is the other part of telling
Right.
the story. Like that's where you shape it again and mold it. But the visuals, like you're only doing that part to get what you need to tell the story. So, I spend, that's the least of the part that is like the most important. And I don't even touch a computer until like that it's time to create the visuals and turn, and make them into videos. But
So when is that for you? Like, at what point are you looking at everything you have, writing wise? And I would love to know more about what tools you're using in this process. I'm sure some of our listeners would as well. Are you? You're doing everything sound like yellow legal pad, the most gangster way possible.
well, yeah, I start yellow legal pad, and then eventually start transferring the writing to I start typing it up because I have to type it up eventually, and I don't want to give myself too much work. So like once I start to get into a flow with writing on the yellow pad, then I transfer it. And yeah, so now I'm on a computer typing and doing all that kind of stuff. And as far as AI tools go, Mid Journey I start with, and then if Leonardo will play along because you're going to get more of a cinematic look, then I'll do, and if it'll keep the characters consistent in the way that they were created in Mid Journey, then I'll run it through image to image with that. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. So you're gonna, get a little bit of like, hey, that looks different, that doesn't. But my biggest aim is to make sure you can recognize the person, still that person, opposed to just like, well, that looks better. So that's kind of like, because I'm probably only going to show you it for that person for a second or two.
Right.
So I need you to get them right away. And so yeah, I do that. I upscale Topaz Gigapixel, run it through a video generator. So Kling right now is kind of my go-to. With Bruce Lee, there was a lot of Luma at first. Then I had to go back and redo a lot with Kling because Kling got better. And then with like the last one I did, all of that's Kling except for 4 shots. And that was and I did that because the censorship wouldn't allow it. And
Which
I did the
whose censorship?
a clean censorship wouldn't out. So there's like a scene in the last one I did where these guys are groveling on the floor and they don't have tops on. So I don't know if Kling thought I was doing like an orgy scene or something. So and that would Luma allowed it. And they're all different. They all have their thing. So I'm not saying that Luma is less censorship
Sure, sure.
friendly because I get a
I
lot.
think Kling would be the most, they wouldn't censor anything, I feel like. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
they usually don't, but sometimes they do. So like even with like Bruce Lee, like I'll have to change lines sometimes because they just won't like it. So like when Bruce Lee said, there's something about like the whole in the United States, I think something about the true Oriental needs to be shown. Like, they weren't allowing that line for the lip sync in
Wow,
Kling.
interesting.
Yeah, and I thought it was because the Oriental's outdated now, but it wasn't that. It was the United States I had to change. And
Ah.
yeah, so like, so I'll try to find a word that kind of sounds close to it, so that the lips will kind of mimic, the same
That's
thing.
amazing.
Yeah, so I'm constantly working around the censorship, and there's, it's so like
The
even with
United Slates.
yeah, even with Luma, even with Leonardo, like so that shot where with the boys, the teddy boys in the beginning, since
Mhm.
they're underage, and I'm shooting it from a low angle, Leonardo doesn't allow it. So once again, I have to stick with mid journey. So there's all these kind of limitations because you can't shoot underage at a low angle. So I'm having to uh, I'm having to jump around to different tools a lot, which is why, especially when you do something 18 minutes like Bruce Lee, people go, what tools you use? Is pretty much all of them, because one's not going to let me do this, another one's not going to let me do that, and blah 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 blah. So yeah, so and you're going to get different looks at different times, and and things like that. But if you're telling a good story, people will focus on that.
Absolutely.
So that's what I must focus on.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this. So you're starting with Midjourney, you're moving to Leonardo. I got Topaz, Gigapixel, and
Hmm.
then Kling. Are you paying for all these tools? Are you CPP in these tools? And feel free to tell me that's none of my business. But I'm just wondering, are you using tools that are you're in a program and you fell in love with them, or are you trying out all the tools and like these are your go-to? I pay for these. I don't care if they're free or not. I use these.
I pay for all of them. I kind of turned down the whole CPP thing. For me, it's not what I want to do. Number one, I don't think they pay artists enough to advertise their products, and a lot of them want you to advertise. And what I do is worth more than $100 a month. So that's just not how I roll. But also, I also want to create in a way that is financially not too big of a burden, because a lot of the reason why I do what I do and the way I do is to kind of encourage people from all over the world, from all income levels, that hey, you can make these things, in an affordable way. So if I can make something under $300, under $500, like that's kind of the goal, opposed to if I'm like, oh, this they're paying for this and they're paying for that and they're paying for that. So it kind of goes against a lot of the things that um, that are about what I'm about, but I
Sure.
do appreciate the opportunities that CPPs
Yeah,
give to other
absolutely.
people.
Yeah, no doubt. I
Yeah,
mean, they're absolutely letting people touch things they wouldn't be able to ever. So I
right.
mean, and it's helping both. I think a lot of creators see it both ways. Some people are in love with it, and others are. I've seen some people voicing opinions lately. I won't. I see some people here in the crowd. We won't shout them out, but I know some people have been voicing opinions lately of like, hey, we deserve a little bit more for what we're doing over here. And I
I
I
I have
agree.
not heard. I don't pay attention to any of the like what people talk about with AI in this community. I might like what some of you guys, I might press the like button, but that's just because I like you. but but I don't listen or read to like anything people talk about. So I don't even know, what people feel about what I'm saying. And it's not, I mean, like I said, there are people who actually, can use the financial support. So I get that. I just, I just have too many reasons
Yeah,
not to do it. It's the same with
absolutely.
competitions. It's like I just have personal reasons as to why that's not for the right fit for me.
Sure. I think the way you're going about it's great. And like I said, you're one of the highest viewed pieces on our platform. And I think you're making some of the best AI content that is incredibly watchable. It's really
Woohoo.
amazing. So, now you're into generating images. You're telling your story. A question that's really interests me is the organization of this. How are you going through? Are
Oh
you doing it
boy.
scene by scene? We talked to Winston Mayo. I shared our Winston Mayo space with you, and he had an incredible way that he talked about how he organized, and he did everything by scene. So he did like um, main shots, and then like a folder with B roll, and just had scene, 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 and then dump everything into there. Dump it to an editor, and I thought that
Wow.
was brilliant. So I'm
Yeah, that
very
sounds good.
interested to know how you're doing this, and how you're thinking about this production as you're generating a piece. You're throwing it into a folder. Would love to hear anything you can share on that front.
That is both the best question and the worst question you could
I
probably
know it
ask.
is. I know it is.
Oh my God.
Like
Organization.
pass next. I
I
pass.
mean, even thinking about it is just, just depressing me. Well, like I said, since I'm doing it, I'm following the three act structure, but I'm kind of creating movements, and you can kind of get a little bit of that through the music. So while it is the three acts, I kind of, have like, so with like Bruce Lee, you have like a folder for the beginning, the opening, and then one for what I'll say is Act One, where where he's in Seattle and stuff like that. Oh, that's the part that I was saying. Linda didn't talk about the Seattle days. Um, oh wait, no, she did. Whatever. and the Seattle days, and then which is Act One, and then maybe Act Two will be. And this isn't the real acts. This because I'm in movements now, but I'm just labeling it that. Might be Hollywood, and then another one, and then the final one might be Welcome to Fame or whatever. So it's like welcome to the America, welcome to Hollywood, welcome to fame, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
But within those, so I have folders for everything: original images, upscaled images, um, original videos, upscaled videos, all of that, like within each movement, within each act or whatever. And and then there's within that original lip sync, upscale lip sync. Like it's just folder on top of folder on top of folder. It's awful.
It's awful. All right,
It's
so
awful.
you're doing all this editing yourself too. I take it, yes, because
Yeah.
I think okay. So that would be that's how it makes sense to me. Is like what you want, so it doesn't really have to be as perfectly organized as it would need to be if you were handing it to somebody else. Because if you were like, yeah,
Oh.
here's the Bruce Lee comes to America, they'd be like, what? Like there's 400 pieces of content in
Yeah, I
here.
mean, and then within each folder, within each thing, it's Bruce talks to dad, or Bruce. So it's like, so they're all beginning with Bruce.
Right,
So
right.
then I have to like find another way to like separate it so that I'm not looking through a ton of like Bruce does this, Bruce does that, Bruce does that. But then it's a nightmare. But the more you can break it up, like I said, that breaking it up into acts helps a lot, or sections. Breaking your film into sections helps with a little bit of the chaos. Um, but yeah, there's still a little bit of searching, but I'm getting better. Like, and I remember a lot of it. I remember a lot of high labeled stuff. But yeah, if I were
Sure.
passing it off, which I don't think I could ever trust anybody to edit, because 'cause like I said, that's another that's writing again. But yeah,
So you're doing
I
everything on your own. What tools are you using for video editing? What's your go-to video editor right now?
DaVinci
Let's
Resolve. I love
go.
DaVinci. I
Let's
love
go.
it.
I love when people say Da Vinci. It's free, right? Isn't it free?
It is it is free. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because they make their money through the equipment that they sell. And I guess if you're doing a studio version, you can buy like their speed editor, which I didn't do because I didn't know. And then they'll give you the studio version with their speed editor, and then you can sell the speed editor online. But yeah, like it's perfect. I mean, eventually after like a few years, and probably when after I started AI filmmaking, I switched over to studio, just because it's easier. Everything I think everything you can do in studio, you can do in the free version. It's just longer, more involved processes. It's where with the studio, it's just like just click this button and it'll do it for you. But with the free version, you got to go to Fusion, which terrifies me. You got to go to the color tab, and you have to create all these nodes, and it gets a lot more complicated.
So when you have these, you have the image now, you have your shot. What are you doing for the audio in that shot? You said you're working with music already. Tell us a little bit about your voice generation, your lip sync process, and how you're syncing those two things.
Well, lip sync I do first after I write. I perform everything. I did When I did Bruce Lee, I didn't know that 11 Labs couldn't handle a lot of really unique accents. Some of them sit on their site, but then when you do the performance, then it'll become very Americanized. So, and with a voice like Bruce, you got to get that right. Like you got to get that right from the jump. And if he sounds like a kid from California in the first scene, nobody's gonna stick around and watch it because
Right.
it's gonna be
They're
fake.
gonna
And
laugh
he's
right
got
away. Yeah.
Yes, and he's got such a unique accent. So and he didn't speak a lot of English on camera, pretty much, you know, anywhere. So I'm having to find his speech in really old training videos of when he's training, certain actors and stuff like that. Like I'm having to pull that, and it's dirty, it's muddy, it sounds terrible.
This
And
is
I'm
amazing,
having
though. I love hearing this. So, where are you finding this stuff at? Where are you hunting for it? Did it take you a
Yeah,
long
yeah,
time?
you hunt for yeah, you I'm hunting for it. And I clean it up. And this is the stuff that makes it different. And this is why like there's no reason to be intimidated if somebody else was like, "Hey, I'm doing a Bruce Lee film at that moment too." I'm like, "Well, you gonna get that voice?
That's
Good
amazing.
luck getting that voice." And I'm intimidated. It's one of those things where every sound designer, everybody's like, "That's a lost cause." If you hear the footage, it's just like you just dump it. Like no, like you'd have to find another person who likes the challenge. So at first I was intimidated. And so, I asked the sound person to do it, and they were too slow in getting back, and it was weird. And this is one of the reasons why I like working alone, because I like a lot of control, as a lot of directors do.
I hate
So
waiting
I'm
on
like,
people.
okay, I'm just gonna have to, yeah. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to figure this out myself. And it just took a lot of cleaning up, a lot of different processes. And then, after I got it pretty close enough, then Adobe Podcast, I ran it through, and that cleans it up a lot more. But I'm performing everything, and like I said, I didn't realize that it couldn't handle a lot of speech to speech. 11 Labs couldn't handle a lot of the accents, and I like to perform stuff because I like to, because I have a way that I want to do it. So, but then I had to research who can handle the accents, and it turned out Play HT does accents, from all around the world extremely beautifully, but they're text to speech, and I didn't like text to speech. Um, because I don't have that much control over it. And but that was my only way to keep the accents intact, was to do it that way. So you're finessing the heck out of it. Sometimes it's every other word. You're having to
Wow.
piece it together. And this is long. And so all of the foreign accents were done that way. And even with this last film I had, which had a lot of accents, again, I still performed it knowing that I wouldn't be able to use a lot of it for the people who had strong accents. But just to be able to hear for myself what I wanted it to sound like, if it sounded good when you said it out loud,
So you're
things
you're
like
doing
that.
this vocal performance. Are you changing your voice to try to get it close to what you want?
Am I like, "Hey man, you
Yeah,
ain't gonna do
yeah,
that."
yes.
No, no, I'm performing, but I mean, I'm probably changing a little bit, but I know that the speech synthesizer is going to handle a lot of that.
Okay.
But I probably am like, like, oh my God, why are you doing that kind of a thing? But, it's not like, bro, you got to stop that.
That'd be fun though.
It would be funny. It's exhausting.
I bet.
I set aside a whole day for it because, it just knocks me out. Like, even if I only spend 2 hours doing it, like I'm wiped after it. So I think that the voiceover industry is really gonna boom once people start making more AI films because a lot of people aren't gonna want to do these performances. Like,
Did you
people
do a
love it.
long voice? Did you do a long recording and then break that into pieces? Or are you doing short snippets and then of the recording itself of the act or the performance and then sticking them in to get the
When
pieces
I
you want?
when I first started, I broke it up by character and I kind of did it that way. And now and this is what I promote. Like, once you get more comfortable with it, is I perform it all. I break it up usually into pages so I can sip some water and stuff like that, like page 1, page 2, or whatever. And I just go through it that way. And I do probably about 5 takes or so of each page. And that, I learned watching Seth MacFarlane do Family Guy, and you're just watching him go from character to character to character,
So
and it's
crazy.
just like, yeah,
Yeah.
and it kind of helps with the flow of it. But that's really hard to do, like, right out the gate. Like, so yeah, and, if you're right out the gate, it probably helps to break it up into each character, like, just perform one character and stay with that character,
Right.
and then you could do that. And you got to go through it all, and you got to pull it all out, and you're putting everybody in their own folder, and just doing work, just doing all that stuff.
It's crazy. Hearing you talk about this, you're doing 12-hour days for 3 months
Mm.
nonstop. And at what point do you feel like you're getting close? Are you close to the last 15 days? Are you close to the last 30 days? Is the end in sight and you're starting to plan release? Are you even thinking about that? What's your total I mean, seriously, post
Yeah.
production, not post production of the media, post production for heading into marketing and distribution.
Well, I give myself a hands-off date. I don't try to chase perfection because it doesn't exist. And I don't want to make it not fun for myself. But there's a fine line. So Bruce Lee, which was near the end of my first year, I'm 10 months in or whatever, and I'm trying to be extremely protective of my student phase at this point. So I'm trying, one of my favorite AI filmmakers, Damon Packard, and he became my favorite mainly for his John Carpenter piece. He has so much fun with it, and it shows in the work, and just really letting AI be kind of this, be a little goofy and silly and all that kind of stuff. So I you want to keep it fun and not try to, tweak everything and make everything perfect and stuff like that. So I give myself a hands-off day to where it's just like, okay, I got everything I needed out of it.
Right, right. I got mine.
And so-
Yeah.
yeah, I got mine. So it's like, yeah, so like I can
Yeah.
just stop at that point. And that was a big part of also, really being protective of my student phase. Like, let me have at least a year to where I can just like figure this stuff out. I didn't know with Bruce Lee, people were gonna be like, no, no, like we're gonna watch it and we're
Yeah, this
gonna
isn't student
think,
phase.
yeah, yeah. So now I have to like, now I'm like, okay, apparently I'm out and I got to take it. I got to be a little, just not take it more seriously,
Whatever you're doing is
but
working. Just keep doing what
give
you're doing.
myself more time. Yeah, give myself more time to, like, to know, okay, you can to tweak things and do all that kind of stuff, and not just
Mhm.
be like, all right, I'm good. Like, here you guys go. Like, say, okay, you guys are gonna keep watching it over and over again. Might as well make it to where you can enjoy it more possible, which you see a lot, reflected a little bit more with iAxman.
Sure.
But yeah, it's the hands off date. It's just like that still is something that I believe in, even if it's just giving yourself more of a cushion. But because you got to find a way to keep it fun, otherwise you can tweak it forever. As they say, art isn't finished, it's
Right.
abandoned, and you
Right.
just got to at some point go like, okay.
Give it
And then
away.
like,
Yep.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so you're ready to produce, you're ready to put it online and you're wrapping this
Mhm.
piece up. How are you feeling as you're close? Do you feel like it's going to get the response it is? Are you feeling like this is amazing? Is the response reciprocating your internal energy?
I have no idea. The beauty of being an artist who, paints in the dark, quote, as they say to
Hmm.
describe like Van Gogh and stuff like that, is that you're so used to just creating for your own satisfaction that like you're not too concerned with how other people view it. You're like,
Love that.
do I like it? Am I satisfied with it? But but then other people do kind of come in and they let you know what they think of it. um and yeah, with Bruce Lee, of course, like I said, people were in on it. That was the first film that I let people know what I was working on when I was doing it. And there's, people are creating stuff already for it. And people are DMing me special Bruce Lee mementos and things that, that meant a lot to them. But in their from their childhood with Bruce Lee stuff they never showed anybody, and they're sending me art that they made like this. So Bruce, it was a little pressure.
Sure, sure.
It was a little like, well, hope you like it. Yeah, so fortunately with this one, they did they they were like blown away, but you're prepared either way. You're like, well, I already got my prosecco chilling on ice, so it's gonna get drank either way.
Did you feel any pressure? This kind of tying back earlier, but now that we're at the end, I want to ask this. Did you feel any pressure about telling the aspects of the story about Bruce that other people haven't mentioned? And you mentioned like his wife wouldn't mention these more difficult time periods in his life. And, I have some friends that have famous fathers or relatives that have deceased, and their family does a lot to protect those legacies and those
Mm.
stories. And media tries to interject where they can, and I feel like people try to enter these wedges in. I'm sure as a writer that's been spent their life in LA and Hollywood, you can attest to seeing that or stories that weren't totally aligned with the person that they were about. Did you have any energy or any difficulty wanting to share those things that like knowing maybe his wife or his family doesn't tell those pieces, or
Well,
were you
this
proud to tell it?
well, this is the probably the most important part of this piece and just the whole Bruce Lee thing and why it's and I mean number one, it reflects the only thing that makes AI film special at this point, which is the fact that you can tell stories Hollywood can't tell. And I mean, with Dragon, which was the Hollywood version of Bruce Lee that was
Which I
enjoyed only
loved
by people. Well, only
as
people
a
who
kid.
didn't really know Bruce Lee's
Yeah,
story liked
I
it.
was 8 or so. I was 8 or
Yeah,
9. Yeah, I was like, "Enter
everybody
the
else was like,
Dragon."
"Well, how come they're not saying anything that was
I
actually
just
like
wanted to be a
real?"
ninja, Tasha. Don't beat me up.
Yeah, I know, but because everybody's like, "Oh, I like Dragon." I'm just like, well, because that was another part of the research is having to go through what all of the fans were disappointed by
Did you
with
watch
everything. Whether
all that content?
I watched all of it. I watched the
Amen. Let's
15
go.
episode about, I'm just, because I want to know. I got to see what they see because, like I said, you're dealing with somebody who the fans are hardcore. That he inspired them so deeply that they know, and they know which documentaries disappointed them and what films disappoint and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, what are people missing here? What's missing there, and stuff like that. What's not being communicated. But with Bruce Lee, you know, there's a reason why he's one of the biggest pop icons that ever existed globally. There's a reason why we get a Marilyn Monroe movie every few years, or we get an Elvis, we get multiple, why we get all these other characters, or we get, Martin Luther King, but we don't get Bruce Lee. That so I'm having, and so because that was another part of my research was like figuring like what's wrong with his stuff, what's wrong with him, and when you're researching, you're like, oh, you're dealing with all of these international issues that aren't being discussed. There's a reason why that interview, the only interview he did, for American audience, for the world in English, why it was lost. There's a reason for all that stuff, and
Lost?
it's yeah, it's called The Lost Interview, the one where he talks about, be water, my friend, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
like the black and white interview we have of him,
Yes.
where we're at the end where he's talking to the guy and he's saying Bruce Lee has a dilemma. Will he become a global superstar? Da, da, da. And there's a reason why that got lost for a couple of days. Like these things don't just happen. I'm not like a conspiracy
No, I
theorist or
mean,
anything like that.
I actually know a
But
little bit about this and like stuff with his dad and other things. And like, I've heard from fans of martial arts and stuff. There's a whole conspiratorial, anybody listening that's hip to that background. Did you decide not, did you not want to touch on those things
no, I
or?
did. I showed no. Well, oh, as far as the no,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
touch
yeah,
on
yeah,
any of
yeah.
that. No, I don't touch on
You
anything that's going to
did. I
take
mean, yeah, you
away.
did the other stuff.
Yeah, I don't touch on anything that can't be that's not a proven fact, like that that or
Hmm.
that's like out there for everybody to see. I don't involve like anything that could be, or that is just or is gonna detract
Hearsay
from the
or yeah,
story
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
So like even with like
You're
the way
moving
he
the story
died.
along. I love that you
Yeah,
said
like
that.
even like
Yeah.
the way he died, I'm not gonna go into, all of the different things which his wife wrote. There's one sentence in one of her books where it's like you get the answer there, but it's like I don't want to go around having to defend or explain
Sure.
because that's not the point of the movie.
Amen.
So
Yes.
I don't include that stuff.
It's not your
But
job.
there's all
Sure.
Yes, but there's international issues that make it problematic to tell. There's Hollywood issues. Hollywood loves telling the story of everybody else who displays discrimination and racism, but they're not that comfortable telling about when they do it. So there's that. There's the um, personal, issues that you discussed as far as like background and things like that. So there's all of these um, dynamics, international relations, China and US, all these things, and how they view him and how they want his legacy preserved, and all this kind of stuff that would cause tension if you go there. And so, I mean, when I was a kid, my sister said to me, "You ruin everything." Because we were talking, my family was talking, and I like Mike Tyson, but at this time it was kind of new, and but we were driving, and my parents were talking about how great Mike Tyson was, and I said, "Didn't he rape somebody?" And it got really quiet, and my sister said, "You ruin everything." And that's when I kind of, that kind of has been my mantra, which is just like, and like I said, I don't judge anybody. I think it's great, but that was just what came to my mind. Like, how come we don't talk about that? Like, because and that's one thing I love about creating certain types of film is just showing all sides of it because we're lovable completely, no matter what we do. There's nothing you can do that will affect how lovable you are. So I'm okay with it. But I had to become okay having that type of personality where it's just like I can talk about what other people aren't going to talk about, and that's for me as an artist, the main point is just to tell the truth. I don't care how it's received. None of these people talk to me like in my everyday life. I don't talk to any of them. They don't pay my bills. Like I don't have any relationships. It's not going to affect my life in any way. Well, maybe one day. And a lot of people are just waiting, I'm sure, like this girl, she she's telling too many stories she shouldn't tell. But yeah, like it's for me, it's just like this, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. And and I try to just stay neutral to all of it because life has its own lessons to teach, so I try to stay out of the way and just say what happened, just tell the story.
Love it. So you just released a Axeman,
I asked
Axeman,
them.
Axeman. Sorry,
Hey,
Axeman. And what are you working on now? Do you want to tell us anything about Axeman and what's next for Queen Tasha Caulfield?
um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I asked them was great. It's that one was fun because I got to play with structure a little bit more in a way that I hadn't done as far as wanting to tell a story about consequences, how one thing follows the other, and being able and so telling it backwards in a way while also telling it forward. So that was kind of interesting with that. Cinematography, by the way, plays a lot in helping to tell these stories as far and helping people to understand quicker where they're at within the story and what's new and what's not. But yeah, and now I'm starting 1984. I got tons of books, that I go through because again, it's about understanding the ecosystem. So, and I got all these dusty books and reading, a lot more of what night of what Orwell wrote, just to understand even deeper what informed every decision that every choice that he made with 1984, to the point where I feel I could have written it myself. Like, I want to get to, you want to get to know it on that level. Like, so I'm going through all of his essays, well, the ones I feel are relevant, his essays and things he wrote for columns and stuff like that, short stories. You read the books that inspired him, like We, um, and or influenced 1984. So you read that, you reread Brave New World, just to understand the conversation a little better that him and Aldous Huxley actually taught George Orwell French when
Wow.
Orwell was a little pup in 1919, I believe it was, at
Wow.
Eton. But yeah, but just why their versions are so different, and then and it's always seeing what people are missing. So like with all of these films, whether it's Bruce Lee or Axman or this, is trying to bridge the disconnect. You have this really big book, this important book, um, but a lot of people are missing what it's trying to understand. So it's like, I'm trying to figure out how to communicate ideas or whatever, or how to help to create that connection so that we understand each other better on this planet. And I think when you have more understanding, then you have more love. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
What is the 1984? Is it more about Orwell that you're doing? Is this a
No, no, no. It's just you have to study Orwell to study 1984 because he
okay?
wrote it.
Yeah,
The same way you have to study the books, the books around it. You got to study
yeah.
the climate of the time. You got to know what I mean. There are rations and things like that. At the time of
Yeah,
writing, so
there's
you have to.
gas days where you have certain sticker, you're getting your gas. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on then. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, you have to understand that. You have to understand, his dad, which is interesting as far as connections go with Bruce Lee's, with his dad overseeing the opium distribution to China, and then just coming off of creating a character who was addicted off of that opium. But so that's interesting. But but him working for the government, and then Orwell having his experience working for the government, and just all of these just different things to where, like, you're in it, and then you're living in a way to where you're so you start thinking, how would I feel if I couldn't do this? How would I feel if I were being watched right now? So there's just a whole immersion, which is why a lot of y'all gonna see me missing from social media for a while. But there's a whole sensory immersion. There's all of that kind of stuff until it's go time.
Let's
Till
go.
it's go
I
time.
love talking to you. I got a couple more questions. We've got about 20 minutes or so here with Miss Tasha Caufield. She is an incredible creator. We've been catching up all about her story, the story of Bruce Lee. If you are just catching up, visit TashaCaufield.com. Go to the top of our profile, Rad NFTV. You can find a link to her page, links to her X, links to her page on Rad TV as well, and links to watch the Bruce Lee documentary. So, that being said, and we're talking a little bit about Rad TV for a second, I would love to know, I see you out here experimenting with different distribution platforms. You're still rocking YouTube. YouTube's what you have in your bio. How are you viewing the distribution landscape right now? And it seems like you're looking for something. What are you looking for? What do you feel is missing in the distribution landscape? And where do you feel like your home is at the moment?
Right now, I can create freely, knowing that I could post to X because you know Broadcast Yourself got banned on YouTube, and with uh, and I feel a little like Rad TV might not ban things I do, but I'm not sure. I also post to Odyssey because they're on a blockchain, and they so it's just kind of like
We're not taking
freewheeling.
down any, just so anybody knows, we don't take down anything unless we get a complaint. So like I saw a Superman
What? A
thing today.
complaint is all it takes.
Well, we have to get it. We have to if we get a DMCA takedown, like they'll shut down all your websites. So they'll
Oh,
literally
from
take.
them. I
Yeah,
thought you
they'll
just meant
take
in
down all your
person.
assets. So like if somebody reaches out with an official DMCA, it's over for you. I mean, that's at that point you have no choice but to comply. So like that's the only way we do anything. But we're not out here policing your creativity and saying like, oh, there's a popular song, take it down. That's not what we're not out here doing that. We are really trying to stay out of the way of creators and their audiences, let them connect. So feel free to upload to Rad TV. We haven't had to remove anybody for censorship or a DMCA since early 2024. So I mean that was a movie. A movie you all know. So
What movie? Can you say?
we actually had a couple. We had Polar Express and we had Avatar uploaded because we support VR.
Oh,
So people are looking to upload, Avatar 2 or
I
whatever new
see.
hot
I
thing
see.
is. And it's like, we don't see everything that gets uploaded. We do,
Mm.
we see it, but we don't like, it's not like, oh, if it gets caught right away or whatever, we usually get things taken down in a pretty quick fashion, but somebody else caught it and we take that down. And it's like, yeah, we're not here to distribute Avatar. We're here to distribute the story of Bruce Lee and the September mixtape and whatever else anybody else is choosing to create and upload. That's not infringing on anybody else's rights in a drastic way. So feel safe uploading to Rad TV, and like I said, it's your platform, no ads, so you're not making any advertisers mad on Rad.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it, like and I'm grateful for Rad TV because I have another outlet and one that is becoming increasingly popular within the community and stuff like that. So it's like so at least it's like okay, so even with like I Axman where you're like I don't know if they're going to let it. I mean, I already accused me of trying to organize crime before. So I mean, and there's just movies that if you're an independent filmmaker or an artist that you just can't do that if you had a studio behind you. You could do. The girl with the dragon tattoo would never be allowed
Right,
on
right.
YouTube if you're not a big star. A Clockwork Orange wouldn't be allowed. So there's all these things where it's just like and the flaw with X, as Jack Dorsey pointed out, was just that we're dependent on one person, and Elon Musk to be able to be able to keep creating. So that's why, at least with Rad, you have an institution that is supporting and stuff like that. So if I, find that or blockchains and stuff like that, at least it's like, well, at least it'll live. At least it'll have some place to go. But so that's what when you talk about what I'm looking for, that's what matters to me. I don't care about the money. I don't care about any of that. It's just like, how's your censorship?
Love it.
Yeah.
So that being said, we've actually been having this conversation internally a little bit. It seems a lot of the most prolific and a lot of the greatest creators in the AI space at the moment are enjoying giving away content for free. And at Rad TV, we're all about creators getting paid and earning off of their creations and turning it into a real career or a revenue opportunity for themselves, and to let them do that full if that's what they want to do. Is that your goal? Is to only do this and only be creating? And like you just said, I'm not in it. I'm not here for the money. And I would like to
Yeah.
know, is there a time when you will be here for the money? And is that something like I feel like you're there now, like I know you put out Bruce
Well,
Lee
I mean, if I
and
need a kidney and I'm like, and those hospital bills start getting up there, I'm sure I'll be like, well, you know what I said about not caring about the money before,
just
guys.
no, heaven
Yeah,
forbid. No, Lord, don't
yeah, if
send
y'all
no,
could
don't
start
send it.
donating. Uh, yeah, I mean, it would probably take something like that for me to like really be into it. I mean, I just, it's tough to start to combine money with art like for like I don't know like for me it's just that's just I don't know if I ever want to put myself in a position like that to where like I feel I need to make money with my art or whatever. It's getting harder to not make money with art, so that's a good thing for people who are looking for that because I'm pretty as my views increase and stuff like that, especially on YouTube or places where like they're already going to start to, they'll monetize you eventually and stuff like that, and generate revenue off of your stuff. Like at a certain point, you're like, well, I might as well, like I don't need to work for them, so I might as well take a cut. But yeah, like I mean, I don't know. I don't really. I mean, my goal a long time ago was to never make a decision based on money. Like that was like what I wanted, and so that's kind of where we're at with that.
I agree. I do feel that in art, a lot of times, if you start making decisions based on money, that's it's often the quickest way to compromising your creation or your what you want to do. But I also see it on the other side of you made this incredible piece. It's one of the most watched pieces on our platform over the last 3 months. And if you were charging a quarter or 50 cents,
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
making
I'm not against.
fifty
Yeah, I'm not
thousand,
against.
$100,000.
Yeah, I'm not against making money with it. I just don't seek it, but I'm not against it. Like I'm not gonna turn it down. My only thing with I just, the only time when I probably, would be like, is when it's just with taxes. It's like, that's gonna complicate it, and I still do the taxes myself.
Sure.
And so I'm just like, and that's one of the things like even with crypto, it's just like, you know, I, I'm like, oh, do I want to open a wallet again and have to go through all that with taxes and stuff? But
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what the future will hold?
Right.
I'm
Right.
sure at some point I'll
Well, I know that you're making content that is absolutely 1,000% worthy of monetization. So if you ever have any questions or anybody here has any questions, our DMs are open. My name's Cameron. Feel free to reach out. Monetize day one on Rad TV. Tasha Caufield, we've got here. Absolutely incredible. Go watch the story of Bruce Lee. It's on our timeline. If you have not watched it and you're making AI content, you have got to watch it. Tasha, I ask everybody this. I hate ending with this. I should probably start earlier with this, but like you don't get to know a person to respect their answer until like the 2 hour mark. So I want to know, what are your thoughts on AI at the moment? Are you fearful? Are
oh
you super
god.
excited? What are you thinking about the future of AI? And you're a person that's using this in ways that 99% of the world isn't. What's your thought at the moment? Are you scared? Are you excited? Are you happy? Are you nervous?
Yeah, because we need another opinion on that.
Hey, somebody's making creations like you and had your life. We want your opinions, Queen. Share them, please.
um, you know, I of course I like it, but I like it as much as I like a paintbrush or something like that. It's just a tool to create. I don't really respect the worship of it. I don't think a lot of people respect what a lot of I don't, AI artists because they worship the tool, opposed to the actual what you're doing with it. So like, for me, it's I just you think of it as a tool, and I don't think need to think about it beyond that.
Love it. Um, what is your favorite tool right now, hands down, in AI? You got a name right now. Don't think. Go. Favorite
Cling a
tool.
ling 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 ling. They're not paying me anything to say that. Cling a ling 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 ling.
What's your favorite part of it? What are you loving about it?
It's just fierce.
Hey,
I mean, there's
yes,
just
that was
things that are
really.
going on. I mean, there's things I don't like, of course. Like you're like, oh, their pay structure could be better. I wish they had rollover, stuff like that. But I mean, it's just better. It's just better. I mean, in fairness, I haven't used Sora. I heard that they don't really allow people a lot, or like for you to like play with characters a lot with that, which is 90% of what I do. So there's no point. And their pay structure is terrible, and I don't. I just don't think they want us to use it. I think they've done everything they can to like. We don't like. I don't know who they want to use it, but it ain't us.
Yeah, they have
So
bigger
I'm like,
fish. I think they have bigger fish to
yeah,
fry.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think
sure.
they want that for the people.
Yeah,
But
I used it
but
yesterday
yeah,
for the first time. Actually, interesting you bring that up. I used it for a little 5 second video for a video I'm editing, and I thought that the UX was terrible for
mm,
as much engineering and money as
yeah,
they have. But maybe it's early. I only played with it for about 20 minutes or so. So I didn't
yeah.
love what it was, but interesting that you're loving Kling so much. How is Kling right now? Is it completely westernized? Or is it as easy of a UX as everything else, or is it still what it was? So I talked to Halim Al Rasihi. If anybody in the here is familiar with his work, he for a long time it was very impressive. He was using OpenAI and a couple other tools to translate the Chinese Kling site, and then he was writing English. He speaks German or something, and he's in Europe. So he's like writing in English to produce Chinese outputs to put into the prompts of Kling, and I couldn't believe it. Is the workflow much easier than that today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very simple prompter. Unlike a lot of people, a lot more words for a lot of people. It gets me. I always say that like AI tools, you don't choose them, they choose you. So it's like some just get you, and they're just like, yeah, we got you, or they just it's just for you. Like Luma could be for you. You could just get better results with Luma. You can get better results with Max. You can get better results with Pixverse. Like it's just they just choose you. It's like a puppy that you go pick from a litter. It's just you gotta just and Kling chose me. I'm for now. When I first started, I was like, I like Pix first. I mean, well, that was a year ago, but I was like, I like Pix first. And then Luma for a while was it, and they switched. I'm probably not going to be into Kling in a month or two because somebody else might come along. But y'all just stop trying to push Pika down our like y'all stop it, okay?
I just unsubscribed from Pika the other
Like
day.
stop it. I get their effects, but I'm gonna say what like if you're making films, you are not using Pika like actual storytelling films. So stop it.
Maybe memes, quick
Yeah,
little,
maybe
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Maybe that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to open up to anybody else that has questions here. I see Tony's in the audience. I'm going to invite you up to speak. Blacklight, J5, if anybody would like to come up and ask Tasha any questions or add anything to the conversation. AI Dreams, Level Up, Benny. Hello,
They gonna come at me for
everyone.
that Pika.
Exocillion. Yeah, if anybody wants to come up and argue with Tasha, we're here for it. Just kidding.
To argue.
We will protect you, Todd. We'll mute them.
Unpopular opinion. Tasha is trash.
No, absolutely. That's not. That is a very unpopular opinion. It's just a foul opinion. Grimfell, hello. I've really enjoyed speaking with you today. I would like to know before we get off of here. Do you have a vision of where this ends for you? Do you want to make a feature length film? Or are you just doing what calls? Do you have a grandiose idea of something you want to do in the not too distant future that is calling to you? Maybe you're preparing for or getting the ropes for at the moment.
Well, I have I have a feature in my. A feature is just about the right script. Like it's not about whether or not tech is to a certain place. It's about the right script. Do you have a script that'll support the strengths of what we have and minimize the weaknesses? And you can tell a gazillion features brilliantly with what we have already. You could have did that a year ago. But for me personally, which I plan to do, I did the opening scene for my book Hangman, and that was designed to be a feature. It will work perfectly for it. But I also was discouraged from doing it by people who know me a little bit better that go, if you do a feature, you're not going to talk to anybody for a year. And right now I'm working on my socialization skills, and so I'm trying to like stay interactive, because if you give me a reason to not have to talk to anybody for a year, I'll take it. So I'm just trying to do a little bit of short form content, but the people are wanting it or whatever. I get asked, hey, oh, I wish this were a feature, I wish that were a feature, whatever. But my ultimate goal with this, I'm told I should not tell people because it's so freaking big, that I don't that it's just it ain't for y'all. But it's big and it's gonna take a really long time, and it's gonna look like she's been doing this for a while, but one day it'll all make sense.
Amen. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Amen.
Love it. Um, it's been absolutely my pleasure to speak with you. Anybody who is interested in learning more about the amazing Tasha Caufield, go to her website, tashacaufield.com, spelled out. Check out our X page, scroll through our highlights. This conversation will be in there. We will be uploading this to Rad TV later today. The Bruce Lee story is featured on Rad TV. If you go to radtv.com right now and click the watch button, you'll see it in our main feature carousel. You do not need an account. You do not need to pay for anything. You just go to Rad TV right now. You can watch it ad-free and one click. If you go to our X timeline, one click, it'll start playing ad-free, no account needed. Download Rad TV everywhere you get your apps. Follow Tasha Caufield Pay attention to what she's doing. She is an absolutely amazing follow on X. She's always active, posting amazing creations, and we've really enjoyed talking to you today. You have an awesome story, Tasha, and
Oh, thanks,
I'll
Cam.
encourage you with two things. You were very inspirational today to me for the way that you are guardrailing your education and your ability to say, I'm a student in this. I'm not where I want to be. I am a student, and giving yourself that space, I'm going to orient that into my life. It's one of the most inspirational things
Mm,
I've heard that resonated with me. I always want to like get the thing so quick and then be so good at it. And I beat myself up
mm,
if I'm not like able to do the thing right away, or I even shy away from things that I know have a little steep of a learning tool. I'll be like, that learning curve's a little too much. I'll stay focused on what I'm doing. I'm going to implement some of your energy and give myself time and
yeah, and have fun with it.
some grace there. Amen.
Yeah,
And
grace.
yeah, yeah. And one other thing I wanted to say was I really respect the way that you are talking about giving yourself time on the timeline. It's kind of the same vein as the education, but I've noticed you saying and encouraging creators to not feel so rushed. And I like to do that as well. And I just want to reiterate, I appreciate that very much. And something we tell creators all the time. And I tell everybody in my personal life, you are right on time. There's nowhere to go. You're learning the
Yeah.
things you've got to learn and to be the person that you need to be, and you're capable today. And just keep going, take that next step, keep showing up, drink water, and take care of yourself. Tasha Caufield, thank you for your time today. You're incredible. Happy Friday. Does anybody want to come ask Tasha any questions before we let Tasha make a closing statement? That's it. Tasha Caufield,
Well,
tell the
I just
people.
wanted to say real quick that I do appreciate Rad TV and just like the energy that you guys bring to the community, not just what you do as far as the services you provide, but just the energy with which you do it with. That's really the main reason as to why I like you guys so much is it's just like you because that's special. It's special what you do. So you guys are doing a lot right in that regard because there's a lot of you know situations where you're just like you don't feel as welcome or you don't feel as encouraged or supported. But you guys, I feel all that with you guys. So thank you.
You're so welcome, and thank you for saying that. We are grateful to have you on our platform, and amazing to watch you work and create. We're excited to be here. We're excited to be building for you all. Our DMs are open. I'm gonna give. We got one question, and I'm not gonna leave until we get the one question from Georgia. So go ahead, Georgia. Unmute. Thanks for being patient.
My goodness, what a story. I am such a fan of you, Tasha. You are an inspiration. I
Oh, wow.
landed in this space following Rad, and it's like, I'm going to use your story. Girl, I don't even have words to express what I've heard today. I'm going
Amen.
to go back. I'm going to go back and listen to it again. And your story is one of the stories that I'm going to share with my children because,
Oh, wow.
usually kids don't listen to mom and they don't want to hear mom's story. So I work with children who had been going through a lot in life. I work at a children's court, and your story is something that I'm going to share with some of the kids' attorneys so they can share with their clients. I just want to share that. I'm emotional because this is too much energy. It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you,
Well, that's
Rad
awesome. I mean,
TV.
it's a big reason why I do it. I wrote this book called AWOL: How to Escape the Juvenile Justice System and Experience Inner Peace, and to help support kids that don't have a great, background and stuff like that. But also, I wanted my life to also be an example of how amazing life can be. So,
Wow.
like, yeah.
It's an inspiration. I work with juvies as well. So sometimes I'm an interpreter. I can't say what I think. I usually become someone else's voice, but with your story, I can definitely
Oh,
share it
wow.
and make
Well, that
sure.
was nice. That's a
Yes,
nice way
thank you
to
so
end
much.
it.
What a pleasure. What a surprise. It's an amazing space. Thank you so much, Red TVs. Thank you, everybody. And you should do the same. Share Tara's story because it's very, very
We're going to share it everywhere.
inspirational. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tara, for sharing your story with us.
Tasha.
I'm gonna go back to work. I'm sorry I'm working. Thank you for letting me
Thank
speak.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
for
Thank
saying
you,
that. Thank
Georgia.
you.
Tasha, I think that's a perfect way to end it. You have
I
been
know, right?
amazing. She said she's at work, so she's probably not looking at the screen. So we got to give her the. And I said, what did I say? I said Campbell, almost Tevin Campbell, one of my favorites, my old school favorites. I know you love them
I've
too.
been called everything but my name.
No, you not. Tasha Caufield, Tasha Caufield, Tasha.
I know, I
I'm gonna
know,
put
I
this
know.
clip on. I'm gonna clip this. Tasha Caufield, Tasha Caufield, Tasha Caufield.com, Tasha Caufield.com,
Get
Tasha
it
Caufield.
right.
Tasha, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Your story is inspirational. I'm glad that she came up and gave you those flowers. You are very deserving of them.
Thank you.
I encourage you keep sharing your story. I would love to see your story in visual form sometime on the timeline. So keep that in mind. I would love to see you brought to life in your own story. It would be great to see. Tasha,
Yeah.
where would
Somebody
you
else.
where would you like people to where can people go to keep up with you? Where do you want to send anybody? Where can people get your most recent work? Anything you want to shout out?
It's just TashaCaufield.com. That's everything is kind of consolidated there. And then X, of course, is where I keep people more up to date to what's going on. And then I guess for films, it would be Rad TV.
Let's go. Thank you.
I know,
Thank
right?
you. I appreciate that. Tasha Caulfield will be, she'll be the #1 piece of content on Rad TV for the next week. Go to Rad TV, check it out. Like I said, no account, free to watch, free for creators, free to get started, free to start monetizing. If you have any questions, my name is Cameron. Our DMs are open. Please follow Tasha. Keep up with what she's doing. She is an absolute force in this community. And if you are afraid to reach out in this community, I am encouraging you, do not be. This is one of the most incredible communities I've ever been a part of. Everybody's so happy to help here. Everybody's so kind. And there's so many spaces to show up to and learn. Just take the step, put your hand up to talk, keep going. Have a great Friday. Tasha, thank you again for your time. Everyone, thank you for tuning in and listening. This space is recorded, so you can check it out on X after this. We'll upload it to Rad TV shortly. Thank you, Tasha Caufield.
Thank you.
TashaCaufield.com.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks, Tasha.
Rad TV, the place to be for creators and fans. We're the key. Join the wave, let's make some noise. Rad TV, where the future enjoy.